Hey guys, hope you are well. Just at lunch and I saw this hit my news feed on my phone and I thought, wow, this is really big news because we all know how inaccurate, I'll say it kindly, the CPI is. The CPI is this total fiction, but the CPI, even as measured by the government themselves or the Bureau of Economic Analysis, I'm not sure who actually calculates the number, but that is skyrocketing. So that's a big deal. I mean, we all know that prices are going up just based on what we see in our own lives. And I mean, I don't have to tell you guys that. And what I've seen and talked about on this channel just reiterates, I'm sure, or just punctuates what you're seeing just at the grocery store, Walmart, whatever. Now, that said, clothing prices have gone down a bit, and I think flights are still down. But the thing is, you'll notice that the things you just buy like once a year, those prices might have gone down slightly, but the stuff you buy every day, those prices have just shot to the moon. But the big thing is the way the CPI is calculated with hedonic adjustments and whatnot. And I've done several whiteboard videos on it. So you guys know it just inaccurately reflects the true rate of consumer price inflation. But now even that is starting to pick up in a big way, and I know that it's measured on a baseline of compared to this time last year, so it's slightly skewed, but it's even overshooting market expectations to a significant degree, and therefore you're seeing the stock market really crash as a result. Let me see where it is now, and it's 2:15 Eastern time. So market down by 500 plus points, and this is because the stock market is predicting or concerned that the Fed is going to have to increase interest rates to combat inflation, and if they do, that's going to put the stock market, the housing market, the whole entire U.S. economy into the no bueno zone, to say the least. I think it's a completely different argument or topic for discussion as to whether or not they will raise interest rates. I'm not so sure. You know, even Jerome Powell said he wants to run or let the economy run quote unquote hot, right? Well, it seems like the economy is definitely heating up. And it also goes to show you just how beneficial it is to use common sense. I don't have a degree in economics. You don't have a degree in economics. I mean, I almost flunked out of high school, for heaven's sakes. But just using good old-fashioned common sense, we could have told the Fed 3 or 4 months ago that prices would increase, or prices are increasing to such a degree that it would even be picked up in the official CPI numbers. So let's go to the actual article from CNBC so you guys can get the specific numbers. And yeah, it's true. I think Eccentric is saying inflation is transitory. I don't know if you're joking or not, but it may be. It absolutely may be. I mean, we discussed this yesterday, and I mean, Snyder and Brent Johnson both seem to think that it is. In fact, I talked to both of them, and they said it's probably the only time in their whole life that they've actually agreed with someone at the Fed. I thought that was funny, especially Jerome Powell. But yeah, it could be. But that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about prices where they're headed in the next 6 months or next year. They could spike up like we talked about yesterday, and then we could go into a notice I said dis, I didn't say D, a disinflationary period where price increases go down. So this year it's 10%, next year it's 8%, 6%, 4%, but we're still having those price increases. I think it's all about what happens at a political level and what they do with government spending and how much of that the Fed monetizes. Going back to what Druckenmiller was saying in our earlier videos, but I'm getting off topic here. Let's get to that CNBC article. Here we go. And this is hot off the press. Inflation speeds up in April as consumer prices leap 4.2%, fastest since 2008. Key points: consumer price index rise for April from a year earlier was the sharpest since 2008. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been looking for an increase of 3.6%. So again, a lot of people are saying, well, you gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt, because last year, it's comparing to this time last year where we had the big cerveza sickness lockdowns and whatnot. But even economists that obviously took that into consideration were projecting 3.6%, kind of the mainstream economists. One big reason for the acceleration was base effects. At the same time last year, the economy was hit with the worst COVID. Yeah, okay. Federal Reserve officials see the current rise as temporary and not likely to influence policy. Well, the market is disagreeing with them because the market is crashing. So they're basically saying, Jerome Powell, we think you are full of BS. So inflation accelerated at the fastest pace more than 12 years. Economy recovery, the U.S. economic recovery. I hate that they use this word, recovery. I hate that word in this context. It's, it really gets under my skin. The same way that it's the same thing is what I'm trying to say, is as when people in the mainstream media would always say that housing prices are recovering. Remember that? Housing price back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, housing prices are recovering. What are you talking about? No, they're not. Housing prices are going back into a bubble. When we bottomed out in 2012, housing prices were on their historic trend line. So, we're not recovering anything. It would be like someone who had taken steroids for the last 3 years and their normal body weight, let's say, is 150 pounds. But because of the steroids, they bulk up artificially to 250 pounds. And then they get off the juice, go back to 150 pounds, but then they get back on the steroids to an even greater degree. And they get up to 175, let's say 200, and everyone says, "Oh, their weight is recovering." It's not recovering. It's inflating again into a massive bubble. And this recovery word that they're now using with the economy implies that it's actually the economy that's recovering. And it's not. The economy isn't recovering. The economy is just as bad, if not worse, than it was in 2019. The only thing that is posing as a recovery on the surface is just the money printing. They're just talking about nominal GDP growth. Oh, okay. Well, that's just a result of going back to what Druckenmiller was saying. The government spending funny money and the Fed monetizing it. That's not economic growth. That's just money printing. What are you talking about? Again, what should be our guiding North Star, which is why I talk about it on this channel so much, is just asking the question, are we creating more goods and services? If we are not creating more goods and services, then we do not have an economic recovery. We just have a recovery in the amount of funny money that's being created. That's not economic growth. And by the way, that type of recovery, if you will, makes us poorer. It doesn't make us richer. And see, that's why I really dislike these terms. And this is misleading as well. The Consumer Price Index, which measures a basket of goods as well as energy and housing costs. Okay, to the layman, they would assume that this is the price of houses. That's not the price of houses. That's the equivalent adjusted rent or rent equivalent adjustments or whatever the fancy term is. Basically, how much did rent go up? It's not how much the cost of a house went up, because then inflation would be 10%, 20%. So it's talking about the month-to-month gain was 0.8% against the expected 0.2%. Excluding volatile food prices and energy prices, the core CPI increased 3%. And see, look at this. Excluding volatile. Can we really have an intellectually honest conversation about prices if we omit food and energy? I mean, come on. Look at your daily expenses. Everyone on this live stream right now, how many people do we have? 385. Just ask yourself, out of the money you spend daily, I'm not talking about your once a month rent payment or once every 6 months when you buy clothes or once every 4 or 5 months when you buy a plane ticket or something like that. I'm just talking about your daily expenses. What percentage of those daily expenses involve energy or food? 100%? I mean, come on. Yet we're completely omitting that from the equation just because it's volatile. So okay. But think about that. They're saying, well, yeah, I mean, you do buy food and energy every day, but it's volatile. So yeah, we don't like that metric. So we're just going to ignore it. We're just going to focus on the stuff we like that produces the number we like. And then we're going to call that the data. I mean, this is like, it's like selective amnesia. I mean, give me a break. They're just cherry picking the numbers to fit whatever narrative they're trying to push. Let's see, like this doesn't matter. Energy prices overall jumped 25% from the year earlier, including a 49.6% increase for gas. And okay, so do normal people not buy gas? So we can just omit that because it doesn't really matter. I know it's kind of a pesky number anyway because it's or a pesky number anyway because it's just too volatile. And I get it. This would have made inflation a lot lower than back during the survey sickness. Fine, so be it. But let's just be honest about it. Used car and truck prices, which are seen as a key inflation indicator, surged 21%. And I can attest to the fact that this is not only happening at the low end, unfortunately, because that's, the poor and middle class, they're out there buying a car for $5,000, $10,000, something like that. And because my buddy, as most of you guys know, has been a used car dealer since we got out of college, way back in the in the day. This would have been, late 1990s. And he's been doing that for 20 years. And we talk maybe once a week, and he's saying, oh yeah, everything that he's selling is just going completely bonkers as far as the prices. And he sells cars generally between like $2,000 and $5,000. That's kind of the price range. But I know that I've been shopping for a car for Florida that's a lot more expensive than $5,000. it would be at the upper end of kind of the car price totem pole, and it's the exact same thing. The exact same thing. And then they talk about the base effects. Yeah, we get that. But like I said, the economists, the mainstream economists that are giving you the 3.6 or the 0.2 projection were including this base effect. I mean, I'm assuming the whole rest of the article is kind of giving cover to Jerome Powell, but maybe not. Here, look at this. Lumber prices alone have risen 124% just in 2021. And I'd like to point out they went way up in 2020 as well. Amid persistent demand for building materials, copper, often seen as a proxy, Dr. Copper, for the economy, for economic activity, has jumped nearly 36%. And that's just in 2021. So there you go, guys. Yesterday we had Druckenmiller come out and say that he thinks the US dollar will lose its reserve currency status within the next 15 years, something that us tinfoil hatters have been talking about for quite some time. And today, the government comes out and admits then that inflation is a lot higher than they thought it would be. Something that us tinfoil hatters have been saying for the last few months. So there you go. I think we should give ourselves a pat on the back for being the first one to, or the first group to discuss these things. And what did it take? It simply took just paying attention and using some good old-fashioned common sense. All right, let me do some shout outs, and then I have got to get to an interview with our good buddy, Robert Barnes. And we are going to discuss an update with the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, that we are doing with the Federal Reserve, the legal action we are taking against the Fed to stand up for the Federal Reserve Act and the constraints that bind the central planners. Robert's been working on that. We did that GoFundMe campaign that generated, what got us up to $100,000 in like less than 36 hours. So, like I said, Robert's been working on that, and he's going to give us an update today. The interview will probably go live on the George Gammon channel this evening. So if you're interested in following along with what's happening with us, and us meaning the rebel capitalists and the Fed, definitely tune in tonight. Okay, let me do some quick shout outs so I can shoot over to that interview with Robert. We've got Quantum Growth, Big RR64, Rolf Steiner, Becky B, Andrew Kelly, Matt Silva, Just John, All-Nighter Hider, JC Jelly, KC, Sunshine, Tim, where'd you go, Tim? Tim Sandman, Jonathan Garcia, Butler, Sustainable Lumber Company in the house, Jose Hernandez, Mitchell Goslin, Alan Zibelman, 1776 Reasons Why, Joy Lou in the house, El Chomillo, Black Tusk Productions, Edson, Goran Reams, Aiden, Nolan Kirk, All-Nighter Hider in the house, Gio Lopez, Wayne Smith. All right, guys, I got to rock and roll out of here. I will see you on the next video.